Cry It Out is a very effective and fast method for sleep training your baby. It isn't the only method for sleep training your baby, so if Cry It Out is not for you, you do not have to do it, and you can find something that you do like. If you're looking for ideas, my favorite sleep training method is called the 4 S's. It's a gentle sleep training method that does not involve crying. So if that seems more like something you would like, then make sure you check out my information on the 4 S's sleep training method. But Cry It Out typically gets the fastest results. So if you are looking for something very fast, then Cry It Out may be a really good method for you. Before you start Cry It Out, you want to know what you should and shouldn't do. So in this video, we will talk about 7 rules that you should follow when you are doing Cry It Out sleep training. But first, hello, my name is Valerie. I blog at babywisemom.com and I've been blogging there since the year 2007. I love helping parents love parenting. I have 4 children of my own who currently range in age from 11 to 19 years old. Rule number 1 is that you need to define what Cry It Out means to you. There are a lot of different ways to do Cry It Out. There are a lot of different ways to do sleep training, but there are also a lot of different ways to do just Cry It Out sleep training. One common way that you may think of when you think of sleep training may be extinction. This is a method where essentially you put your baby in their crib at night and you do not go back in until it's time to get up in the morning, no matter what happens. Extinction sleep training is the fastest method of sleep training, but it obviously can feel really intense. And so a lot of people don't really love that. It does get the fastest results of all the Cry It Out sleep training methods. So if you're looking for fast, this may be a good method for you. You also have methods like fading or Ferber, where you go in after 5 minutes of crying, and then later you go in after 10 minutes of crying, later you go in after 15 minutes of crying. So you slowly extend the intervals before you go into your baby. And this can feel nicer for the parents. It isn't necessarily more effective for the baby, but there are some methods that are better for some babies than others. There is also a Cry It Out method called the chair method, and that is where you are sitting in a chair in the room with your child. This tends to be a more popular method with older babies or children, or young toddlers. So with this, you're in the chair close to your baby, and then you're slowly moving the chair closer to the door until you're out of the room. And so that's that method. You might feel a little better about it because you're there with your baby, but it may be really hard for your baby or toddler to fall asleep seeing you right there. And of course, there are other ways to do Cry It Out. So before you start, just have in your mind an idea of what you are doing, what your rules will be, what your method will be. With that said, you might find that you start with one idea and then realize that actually doesn't really work well for your certain baby. I did sleep train my first 2 babies using Cry It Out, and it was a little different for both of them. What worked for one did not work for the other. So while you may go in with some idea of what you're doing, you might change once you started out and realize that actually doesn't really work well for my baby. I had one baby who did not do well if we went in and resettled or anything. It was much better to just start and finish. But I had another baby who did really well if you went in, but it had to be at a certain point. If you went in too soon, then she would not sleep. If you went in too late, then she would not sleep. You had to time it right. So you want to start with rules, but you might change your rules as you get to know your baby better, and be willing to do that. But make sure you're keeping track of what your rules are and are not. My second rule is to clear your calendar. You want to be home with your baby while you are doing Cry It Out sleep training. If you are home sometimes for naps and out sometimes for naps, or visiting people for naps, or sometimes you're at home for bedtime and sometimes you're out at bedtime, it will make sleep training so much harder, and it will make it so that your baby takes much longer to find success. You also want to make sure you're not distracted at home during your baby's nap and bedtime. As you put your baby down for a nap, you need to be able to pay attention to your baby and analyze, did that work? Did that not work? Was this good for my baby? Was it not? So clear your calendar and keep yourself very open and able to pay attention to your baby. My third rule is to make sure your baby is in a good physical position to do sleep training. If your baby is sick or teething or having a growth spurt, that's not really the best timing for doing sleep training. You will wonder, is my baby crying because this wasn't the right timing for nap, this wasn't the right bedtime routine for nap, or is my baby crying because her teeth hurt, or because she's hungry because she's in a growth spurt, or because she has that cold and cannot breathe? So wait until your baby is healthy and not in a growth spurt so that you are better able to analyze the situation and react accordingly. My fourth rule is to only start if you will actually be consistent and see it through. You don't want to start and then stop sleep training, and then the next day try it again, but then that day decide, no, this isn't for us, and then a couple days later try it again. That is just leaving your baby to cry. That's not moving toward any kind of goal. So you need to make sure you're going to see it through. With that said, you might start sleep training, you might start Cry It Out, and then once you're doing it, decide, yeah, that's not for us, this isn't what I want to do after all, and then decide to stop, and that's fine. You can absolutely start and then decide, yeah, I don't want to do this, and stop. Just don't start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. Rule number 5 is to be consistent. Now, I talked about being consistent with being home. Don't go out visiting people, don't go out shopping. You really need to give yourself 2 weeks to be able to you're home, that's your plan, that's what you're doing on your calendar. And maybe your baby will catch on faster than that, and if so, yay. But you need to have patience and give your baby 2 weeks of super consistency. But beyond that, you want to keep your days consistent. Have a solid routine to each day. I recommend an eat, wake, sleep cycle. Your baby needs to know what to expect and when to expect it. You also really want to be consistent with a sleep routine, so you follow the same pattern before a nap or before bedtime, so that your baby is signaled and knows, okay, this is what we're doing, it's time for sleep. And you also want to be consistent in your sleep training method. So you don't want to sometimes do extinction sleep training and other times be doing Ferber. Find the one that you feel like is best for your baby and follow that method. Rule number 6 is to find your baby's appropriate wake window or wake time length. There is an optimal length of time that your baby should be awake between waking up from nap and going down for the next nap. And what you need to do is find out what that number is. This can be easy for some babies and it can be really difficult for others. I have a lot of information on my blog all about optimal wake time lengths and how to calculate wake time. It's so important that I've dedicated a lot of information to it, and I also have a video about it. So make sure you read those, watch those, so that you understand how to do that. If you have optimal wake time down, then your baby will fall asleep easier and will take a long enough nap, stay asleep longer. If you don't have that down correctly, then your baby will have a harder time falling asleep and or wake up after a 30 to 60 minute nap instead of sleeping for an hour and a half to 2.5 hours. It's super important, it's super necessary, and you might have the right method down, but if your wake time length is off, then it still will not work. My 7th tip, if you have time and are able, is to read Healthy Sleep Habits, Happy Child. This is one of my very favorite books for baby sleep. It is written by Dr. Mark Weisbluth. It's really great for helping you to understand how important sleep is and for helping you have a healthy respect yourself for sleep, and that sleep is absolutely vital for your baby and for your baby's development. When you understand how important sleep is, then you're more willing to do what is required in order to help your baby be sleep trained. This book also talks a lot about cry it out sleep training and gives a lot of information and tips, and so it can really help you out with that. Those are my 7 tips for cry it out sleep training. Like I said, I did sleep train 2 of my babies using cry it out. It's a very effective method. There are no negative ramifications long term. My oldest 2 children are 17 and 19 years old, and there's no problems. I don't regret doing that with them. I didn't love cry it out, which is why I moved to a no cry sleep training. I don't really know who loves cry it out, but it is effective, it does work, and some people are more in a time crunch, like you're headed back to work, or something's happening in life where you just know, like, I need this quickly. And if that's the case, cry it out is a great method, and I absolutely think is just fine for a way to sleep train your baby. I do have a lot of information on my blog about cry it out, and so if you have questions, be sure to check those out. Also, if you have questions, be sure to drop them in the comments and I will answer. And thanks for watching and have a great day.